Emily Carter had rehearsed this moment for 12 years. But when she finally drove into Lakeshore, Oregon, her hands still shook on the steering wheel. The town looked smaller than she remembered, quieter, almost untouched by time. But she had changed, grown, hardened, built herself into someone who didn't break easily. At least, that was the version she showed to the world. Inside, she still carried the echo of the day her father left. A soundless moment that split her childhood into two halves, before and after. Now she was 27. Successful and finally brave enough to face the man who had walked away. Her plan was simple. She wanted her father to see what he had lost. She didn't want revenge in a loud or cruel way. She wanted a quiet confrontation, a mirror held in front of him, showing him the daughter he barely knew anymore. A woman he should have been around to raise, support, and love, as her car rolled to a stop outside the lake house. The wind moved across the water with a low hum. The house looked peaceful, its wooden porch wrapped in the golden glow of a settling sun. She tightened her coat and climbed the steps. Her heart thudded so loudly it felt like a second set of footsteps. Following her, she knocked twice. The door opened almost instantly. But the man standing there wasn't her father. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered, wearing a worn flannel jacket over a gray t-shirt. His sandy brown hair was a little messy, like he'd just run a hand through it. His eyes held a steady warmth that contrasted sharply with the tension inside her. He stared at her for a second, then spoke her name softly. Emily. She blinked, surprised he knew her. "Yes, I'm Daniel," he said. "Your dad's friend. He told me you might come by." Something in his voice, gentle, grounded, made her breath catch. She had tried to prepare for awkwardness with her father, for unresolved emotions, even anger. She had not prepared for him, a stranger who felt strangely familiar, a man who looked at her with understanding before they had even shared a real conversation. She forced herself to stand straighter. "Is he home?" Daniel shook his head. "He had to step out, but he'll be back soon. You're welcome to wait inside if you want." Emily hesitated. A large part of her wanted to turn around, get in her car, and leave. Another part wanted to wait, finish what she came here to do. But there was also something else, a quiet curiosity about Daniel. She didn't like that feeling. Not tonight, not when her emotions were already unpredictable. Still, she nodded. "Okay, thanks." As she stepped inside, she felt his eyes on her, not in a heavy or unwelcome way, but in a concerned, perceptive way. The living room was warm, lit by soft lamps and the fading orange light slipping through the windows. She sat on the edge of the couch, unsure of where to place her hands. Daniel didn't sit right away. He studied her for a brief moment, as if trying to understand the weight she carried. "I've heard a lot about you," he said finally. "Your dad talks about you more than he probably admits." Emily let out a short, humorless breath. Talking is different from showing up. Daniel didn't argue. He simply nodded, as if acknowledging the truth without trying to fix it. She appreciated that. The last thing she needed was someone defending her father. She folded her arms, trying to appear calm. "How do you know him?" "We've been friends since college," Daniel said. "I moved back to town a few years ago, so we reconnected." "So you know the version of him that stayed?" she said quietly. Daniel paused, as if choosing his words carefully. "I know the version he became, not the one who left." Emily looked down at her hands. She hadn't expected sympathy from a man she'd met less than 5 minutes ago, but his words settled inside her in a way she wasn't ready for. It made her chest warm and tight at the same time. "Can I get you something?" he asked gently. "Water? Tea?" "Water is fine," she said. As he moved to the kitchen, she watched him. He moved with a calm confidence, as if he was used to taking care of things quietly. She shouldn't have noticed that. She shouldn't have noticed anything about him. Tonight was about her father, not someone else's presence filling the room so easily. But she couldn't ignore the fact that Daniel's energy made the house feel different after. More welcoming, less like the place where she had been abandoned. He handed her the glass, then sat across from her. Not too close, not too far. respectful distance. She liked that. So, what made you come back? He asked. Emily took a slow sip. I needed to see him. I needed him to see me. Daniel didn't push for details. He simply listened, and she found herself appreciating the quiet more than she expected. The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was warm, like someone holding the edges of something fragile without asking what it was. She looked around the house. Did he tell you why I stopped talking to him? No, Daniel said softly. He just said he wished things had been different. Emily's throat tightened. For a moment, she hated how easily those words affected her. She had spent years building emotional walls. Yet one sentence spoken in Daniel's calm voice felt like it found a crack in them before she could respond. She heard the front door unlock. Her pulse jumped. Footsteps. Her father stepped inside. Older than she remembered, but instantly recognizable. Gray hair at his temples, lines deeper around his eyes. A tiredness hanging on him that she hadn't expected. But the first thing he noticed wasn't her, it was the way Daniel was. Looking at her. A moment of surprise flickered across his face, surprise mixed with something else. Something protective. Something he tried to hide. Emily stood slowly. Her father's voice trembled. Emily, you came. His words cut through the room, soft but sharp. She felt everything at once. Anger, confusion, relief, resentment. And something like mourning for all the years they lost. I did. She said quietly. Before her father could step closer, her eyes shifted back to Daniel. He was standing now, but he wasn't watching her father. He was watching her, steady, patient. Present in a way she didn't expect from someone who barely knew her. And for the first time since arriving, Emily's plan didn't feel clear anymore, because Daniel's presence had already changed. Something inside hers, something she didn't understand yet. Her father finally spoke again. I didn't know if you'd really come. Emily drew in a breath. I didn't know either. But as the weight of the moment settled around them, she realized something quietly unsettling. She had come here to confront her father. She had not come here to meet someone who might understand her better than he ever had. Yet Daniel stood nearby, feeling like an unexpected part of a story she hadn't planned to write. And as she looked between the two men, a new question formed in her mind, one she wasn't ready to face. What if the person she came to challenge was not the person who would challenge her? What if Daniel was the one who would shift the path she thought she had so carefully prepared? She didn't know yet, but the night was just beginning, and the story, she thought, she controlled was already starting to unravel in a direction she never expected. Emily didn't remember sitting down. One moment she was standing in front of her father, unsure what to say. And the next, she was at the dining table with a cup of untouched tea in front of her. The room felt tight, filled with everything she had never said. Her father sat across from her, elbows resting on his knees, looking as if he was afraid to blink and lose her. Daniel stayed near the window, giving them space, but staying close enough in case the air broke. Emily wrapped her hands together, steadying her breath. She had rehearsed this conversation for so long, but the real moment felt heavier than she imagined. I didn't come here to start a fight, she said quietly. I came because I needed answers. Her father nodded slowly. You deserve them. She didn't expect that. Her voice softened, but her eyes stayed sharp. Why did you leave? The question hung in the room like a hanging rope. He took a long breath before speaking. Your mother and I, we were breaking before you ever saw it. I stayed for you. I tried to make it work, but I failed. That still doesn't explain walking away from me, she said. His face tightened. I thought staying would cause more damage. I thought I was the problem. I believed you'd have a better life without watching us fight every day. Emily swallowed the sting in her throat. You didn't even try to be part of my life afterward. I thought I'd make things worse, he whispered. I regret that every day. She stared at him, her heart twisting in a way that made her feel angry, sad, and strangely tired. She wanted to scream at him, tell him he had ruined so many moments she needed him for. But she couldn't. Not when he looked like a man who punished himself every day for a choice he couldn't undo. Daniel shifted slightly at the window, and Emily's eyes moved to him for a second. His steady presence calmed her in a way she didn't fully understand. He wasn't trying to fix anything. It was just there, and somehow that made it easier to breathe. She turned back to her father. "You should have tried even once." "I know," he said. "I can't change the past. All I can do is hope we can start somewhere." Emily didn't respond. Her silence said enough. Minutes passed before she finally stood up. "I need air." Her father nodded, giving her the space she needed. Emily walked outside, stepping onto the quiet porch. The lake reflected the shifting sky, calm and steady in a way her heart wasn't. She wrapped her arms around herself, unsure if the cold or the memories were making her shiver. His footsteps approached, but they were soft, too soft to be her father. It was Daniel. He stayed a respectful distance away and leaned against the porch railing. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Emily stared at the lake. "I don't know." Daniel didn't push. "It's a lot to take in." She let out a short breath. "I thought I'd be angry. I thought shouting would make me feel better. But hearing him talk like that—" She paused, searching for the right words. "It hurts more because he seems sorry." Daniel nodded slowly. Sometimes apologies hurt more than the mistakes. Emily looked up, surprised by how deeply his words struck. "Is that from experience?" He offered a small, quiet smile. "Let's just say I've walked away from people I shouldn't have." Emily studied him, suddenly curious. "You don't seem like someone who leaves." "People change," he said softly. "Sometimes too late." Their eyes met, and something passed between them, an understanding both gentle and unsettling. Emily looked away, feeling an unfamiliar warmth rise inside her. She didn't come here for anything like this. She didn't plan for this man to step into her story. Yet here he was, standing next to her, feeling like a safe place she hadn't expected. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For being here. For not treating me like I'm fragile." Daniel's expression softened. "You're not fragile. You're just hurt. There's a difference." The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. She nodded, unable to speak for a moment. They stayed like that for a while, quiet, steady, watching the lake as if it could absorb everything they didn't say aloud. Inside, her father moved around, probably giving them space. Emily didn't know what tomorrow would look like between them. She only knew she wasn't ready to decide anything tonight. As the sun began to fade, Daniel cleared his throat. "If you want, I can drive you to your hotel. It's getting cold." Emily hesitated. "I actually don't have a hotel yet." Daniel blinked. "You drove here without a place to stay?" "I wasn't sure if I'd stay," she said honestly. He looked at her for a long second, thinking. "There's a small inn 10 minutes from here. I can show you the way." She nodded. "Okay." They told her father they were heading out. Her father simply nodded, though his eyes carried a mix of relief and worry. He didn't ask questions about Daniel joining her. Emily appreciated that. On the drive, the quiet between her and Daniel felt different from the quiet inside the house. This one felt like something living, stirring, shifting, breathing. She watched him from the corner of her eye. He drove with one hand on the wheel, relaxed but focused, the fading light brushing against his jawline. There was something undeniably warm about him, something she wanted to understand but wasn't sure she should. "You don't have to stay involved," Emily said after a while. "This is between me and my dad." Daniel glanced at her. "I know, but I'm not involved. I'm just here." "And why are you here?" she asked softly. He took a breath before answering. "Because sometimes people walk into your life at strange moments. And you don't always need a good reason to care that they're hurting." Emily didn't expect that answer. It made her heart pull tight in her chest. She turned her face toward the window, hiding the expression she couldn't control. She wasn't used to someone caring without being asked. She didn't know what to do with it. When they reached the inn, Daniel walked her to the door. She checked in, then turned to him once more. "Thank you, Skay." She said that already, he teased gently. She smiled despite herself. "Well, thank you again." Daniel stepped back, hands in his jacket pockets. "Get some rest, Emily. Tomorrow will feel different, will it?" she asked. "Yes," he said softly. "Everything feels different after a night of honesty." She didn't know what he meant, whether he was talking about her father or about what was quietly building between them. She wasn't sure she was ready to ask that before he left. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't read fully, part concern, part admiration, part something else she wasn't ready to name. When she entered her room and closed the door, she leaned against it, her breath unsteady. She had come here to make her father face the pain he caused. But now, as she stood in the quiet room, she realized the night had shifted more than she expected. Her father wasn't the only man she was thinking about. She didn't know what Daniel meant to this story yet, but he was already becoming someone she couldn't ignore. And the most surprising part? A small part of her didn't want to ignore him.